start this out with, hey, good evening, because it's evening now. But all right, so I got another one here that I'm going to be working on. I think it's 04, 05 neon. It's actually sitting behind me. They were in the process of getting an engine installed, and they were running out of time just due to where they were doing it. And well, it's winter. There is snow on the ground here now, around eastern Pennsylvania, Maryland area, and they needed somewhere for it to go. So I opted to go over everything and make sure that everything was done right. There was a lot of stuff that was kind of just put together because they were trying to get it to the point where it would start and run and be able to drive on a trailer, or at least be able to move it from where it was. Like I said, because we were coming into winter. So we're just going to do a quick walk around. I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I've already found and made a list on. If I can find it here. Okay, so basically we want to get this thing started up and running. There is some wiring that needs fixed. Fuel line needs fixed up. There's no ground wire going to the engine because they relocated the battery to the trunk. Speedo sensor and the oil thing wasn't plugged in. Turbo drain hose. Just a lot of stuff needs to be finished and then fixed. So let's just take a quick look at everything that I found here now. Now let's come over here first, see if we can see in here. The oil, well, you can see the oil drain is here. That you want to come straight out the bottom, so the turbo needs clocked. And the hose that they have here, it's actually touching the exhaust manifold, obviously because it needs clocked, and it's probably not the best for oil. It's okay for heat, but it's not the right one. All right. I did find some damage to the oil feed line, so we have a nice new oil drain kit and oil feed line. All right. So we have that stuff to go on here. So we have to get a ground wire on here. We're going to fix up a lot of this stuff. I also found that there is no clamps holding this fuel line on, and some of the fuel line did get damaged, so we are going to be remaking that fuel line. I'll show you where that's at here in a minute. We have a couple other things that are being ordered. We're getting rid of this coolant overflow. That coolant overflow breather, that would probably work a lot better for a stock turboed car. So we're going to, get this out of here. We got to get our fuel line fixed up and ran some way where it's not touching everything. Like everything's just a mess. This wiring here is really close to this exhaust. It can melt. We have the AFR gauge. Not sure what was happening here, but they have that zip tied right here. Really quick, anything that I'm pointing out, it's not the way I would do it. It's the way, it might work for some people, but some of the things that I see here, like with all this stuff down in here tight with everything, there's a bracket for this, but is it going to fit? It's going to rub on there. No way can you even see the gauge to make the adjustment. So that's not going to work. Which is one reason why we're getting rid of this. We're relocating it. We're getting a different one. Anything I see, I just point out that it's wrong. I don't point fingers because I don't know who did it. I just know that they had to try to get this stuff taken care of. I'm not a fan with the way this hose here is running down in. So like I said, we're going to try to fix that up, get that down in there a little bit nicer. What else? We have to, like, there's a ground wire here. I guess it just got stuck here when they were sticking it in. It just never made it back up. So we'll have to pull this off, get that down to where it needs to be. Yeah, the plugs for the speedometer and the oil pressure are there. And not sure what this is for something's going on with the master cylinder for the clutch, so we got to pull that off. We got to swap that out. I mean, there's a lot of decent parts here, and stuff looks like it's flowing the right direction. It's just there's other things that just weren't done. So that's what we're here to do, and we're here to make it right. Man, some of these go right on and some of them don't. I don't know why that is. Some of those throttle bodies just don't fit right. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a flashlight. Let's take a look at the fuel line was installed, but not installed. So it ended up hanging down. So we have some damage to the stuff. These kits, they don't come with any clamps. So they should, and they're gonna need to be clamped. If you take a look right here, this was actually leaking, it's kind of crushed. There's a smush right here, a bend. I guess that got caught on the trailer, loading or unloading, stuff like that. Need to finish putting the brakes on. The axles need finish to be installed. Some of this wiring over here. I just wish, well, I'm not even going to worry about this. Let's see if we can see from down here. All right, you can kind of see the fuel line. There's our dump tube. See the way the fuel line's laying up around that. So I don't know if something different's going to have to be done there. And then you have the alternator wire. That is pretty close to that pipe too. It's going to get hot no matter what, and fuel line laying on that is a definite no-no. So we're going to repair that line. We're going to get everything mounted up to the floor, and just clean this mess up. I don't know if I think that line's probably too long, because this is returning out of where the regulator is in the back. It's not coming out the front. So I think that's why that's hanging down so far. Since we're going to be remaking that rear line, we'll probably make it shorter and bring it up. And then depending on where this comes out, we might have to shorten this front line and just get it a little bit better. Taking some out is okay. You can do that. You can shorten them. When they're too short, you're kind of screwed. And I've been there before. It does kind of look bad. There is a lot of stuff that's going to need to come off and be done correctly. So I'm going to start with getting everything removed up here. I have an extension coming for this so that it'll allow this harness to come down over and be routed correctly down underneath to the bracket of the alternator. That way it's not possibly touching our exhaust manifold. Not only that, it'll be out of the way for our fuel. So we're going to pull this. The heat shield, which is actually pretty nice. This pipe here is made nice. I think this is cool. You know what I mean? I'm curious to see how this is gonna work while this thing's running, and how it holds up. But this pipe, whoever welded it looks pretty cool. So we're gonna get all that stuff pulled off, and then we'll get everything down in here. We're gonna get our fuel lines figured out. We'll get that straight. We'll get our regulator mounted. And then we're just going to start working our way across. We're going to get our turbo clocked, get our oil and our feed lines on there. This can come off and be used somewhere else, which I think I'm going to take this cover off and I'll put it on these lines. I'm going to reroute our sensor, AFR sensor, down through, get that figured out. So there's a couple things that need to be done before we can even get this thing fired up. But like I said, it's just all part of it. They have the cold side pipe on, but whoever had originally made that, it's down in there. It's kind of hard to see. See if you can see it. It's down there. So it's a little short. Doesn't quite make it to the turbo, but we're going to get that straightened out too. Just basically, I got to go over this thing. I think it's missing this axle. So we got to install the axle on this side. This one over here is not hooked up to the intermediate. So we have to get this one hooked up, top off our trans, check our oil, check our coolant, just get everything out of the trunk and get it all installed on this. There are more parts that are supposed to be showing up for this. This is why I've been waiting. All right, we got a lot of work ahead of us, believe it or not. So I'll show you more of what I find when I get in there. All right, let's take a look at this down here now. All right, we got the pipe out of the way. We got this off. But you can see just how far out this turbo is clocked. So we'll have to loosen these, rotate that down. Wow. It looks like it's pretty new. I'm not sure what it is. It's a precision something here. So we'll have to check it out. 60, it's got a 68. It might be a 58, possibly here. But it is a 63 housing, so it's on the smaller side. I got 82 on these other two cars that did. So we're gonna get the wastegate out of the way. Then we're gonna get this overflow off. All right, wastegate's out. Looks like we got one here. Zip tie. All right, gotta watch this stuff, man. It's really sharp. All right, update time, obviously. How can I say it? I pretty much got a lot of this stuff out of the way up here. I was able to get the turbo clocked around. I still got to get this fitting out here. I'll show you why in a moment. We got most of this fuel line. Any of these fuel line fittings, they were loose. Like, I took them off by hand. The only ones that I found that were tight, they actually did cut this. So I think I'm going to remove the rest of that line. I got everything removed back here, but I wanted to take into an account here. Hopefully you can see up in here we have a black, and then there's like a shiny aluminum one there. That's the fitting that goes into the tank, okay? Hopefully we can get this. All right, you have to hold this right there when you tighten this line up. So it was tightened a little too tight there on that one. This one here seems like it's all right, but I'm gonna have to drop the pump or the tank to drop out the tank. Hopefully it's not too much fuel in here, I don't know. And then I'll have to get it down. I'll have to double check this, see if I need to reseal that one, and then I'll hold these the correct way and get them tightened up. But I have to pull this line, and I got to undo this ground here yet. But we'll get that stuff off. I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison of a couple things here in a moment. Drain pipe, okay? Obviously you can see we have a different length. This one here is more for coolant, is the best way to say it. Let's look at these at the end. You can tell there's a lot more threads going through the correct one. This is like a silicone hose. It's more oil resistant than this drain hose here. So, I mean, could you use this? Yes. How long will this last? Not too long, and you're going to have a giant oil mess underneath your car. And, well, that's not something you want to do. So that's why we replaced that. Now, this was with a line that we had feeding the turbo. This thing had a very bad smush right here. Hopefully that can be seen. I mean, a turbo is a pretty expensive part of the entire setup. So I would make sure that you have the correct line. This is what we got. Okay, I wanted to mention, now this is my first time with, this is an ATP4 manifold. It actually has, on the AGPs, the turbo here lays flat. This one's kicked back more. I don't really know the ins, the outs, or the Ys, but they seem to be a fairly decent manifold. I think they flow maybe better than the AGP. I don't know, okay? So, we might have to change the fitting on the bottom of that turbo. We might have to change this one. This one's bent, so it goes on this way, and it actually pushes the hose away from your hot side, which is why that's like that, I believe. But that comes with new clamps. It comes with new bolts for this. All right, so then your oil feed line, this is what it comes with. So we have our 90 here, all right? And then this is the one that's supposed to go into the block. I don't know what's there. I have the new stuff, so we're gonna be installing all that stuff new. This line was way too long. It was wrapped up around a really weird, really weird way. I just gotta see how this is gonna fit up, and then I'll route it correctly. It does have some heat shielding on it, which is something you really want for your oil line. And if you're installing a turbo, you want to make sure that you have good oil feed to the turbo, and put a fitting coming out the bottom here and eliminate this 90 that doesn't need to be there. So this is supposed to have a bracket and get mounted right back there, like it would be if it was set up for like the AGP return kit. So that's what we got. All right, so my goal is to just try to make that work, bring it around where it needs to be. We got to get our oil drain on here and get this fuel system fixed back up, and then we can start working on some of this other stuff. Here is the, all right, here's this end. I'm going to clean this up and then probably wrap some of this stuff with some tape and just make it so that it fits correctly also, and get it ran down across the top here, in behind the alternator where it's supposed to be, tucked down underneath. And then we'll dig out another heat shield and install a heat shield on this car again. So we're going to remove the other line. Man, I don't know why that was twisted up like that. There's no reason for it. We'll get this here installed where it needs to be. I'll put a little bit of silicone grease on all that stuff like I do any other time. We're going to get our bracket cleaned up here for this. I think with the way this is, I'm going to try to get, like I said, I'm going to try to get this mounted into here and then see what I got to do from there. That way I can get my lines where I need. Like I said, this is the feed line. And with the 90 on there and that length, it looked like it was pretty long. It was letting everything hang. So I'll get that hooked up, see where that puts me for that. And depending on where that's mounted, I'll just make a short piece for the end, but I have a feeling I'm going to be making that piece and then shortening this one. And then, like I said, with all that, with this custom wastegate tube, we got to get that fitted up and make sure that our lines aren't near that either. So, all right, so we're working on getting some stuff figured out here. We had the wire routed. I had to loosen everything up here on the alternator, but we have the wire routed down. It actually goes between the alternator down here, behind the alternator, and then wraps out around and comes out from the bottom. So I have that installed, and I also brought the power wire for the fuel pump relay up through this plastic so that this can get inserted. I got to double check the tightness on that. Here is the fuel regulator with a bracket. I actually got to get longer Allens, but I wanted to try to get this set up. So with this 90 that's coming out of the bottom, I'm going to pull that one out. I'm going to put one that comes straight out like on the ends here. And then this should be okay, which it'll turn it back more and I can tuck it out of the way. I wanted to test fit this here. All right. So it's kind of how it's going to sit. So it looks like all the fuel line, if I keep it over tight here to the left, it's going to be fine. It is pointing everything more toward the center, which is actually very nice over the AGP one that just kind of dumps it straight down. But it can't point it that way because the exhaust is there on a normal car. So, all right, now that is taken care of. I did get our fuel line here pulled apart. This end would not even come off because it's just damaged. You can see how it's flat there. So we're gonna have to make that fuel line. But right now I'm working on getting this stuff fitted up. I still need to drop the fuel tank. I got the coupler out and I'm installing this one here. Hold your lower bolt, make sure it don't spin. This one here I probably need to spin around another time. We have the new fitting to go in the block, and we need to Where's my hose? My hose. We got to get our drain hose installed, which you can see where that location is. It's back there a lot farther. So like I said, I might need one that's actually curved this way because of the way the ATP one changes it. So I might have one, or I'm going to end up having to order one of those yet. So it's just the little things that you do will just make it so much nicer. We did get some other stuff in. We have O2 extension wires. Some wiring we're going to try to use for the ground. This is an overflow. I'm not going to be able to use any of that hose. It'll be way too short, but I have this overflow, and I'm probably going to mount it down here like where I mount them all the other times. And that should work out pretty good for an overflow. Yeah, so just little things are coming together here. All right, man. Evil energy. All right, so we've got our fuel line made up that's going to come from our tank with the 90, and then it's going to go to our filter. I still have to get everything mounted up, which I'm going to wait until I get the tank dropped out and fix up the little piece down here. Now, hopefully you can kind of see I have the filter hanging there. We do have some extra length. I'm hoping that I'm actually going to like tuck it over on the other side of the lines. But I got to finish removing our OEM factory line because I did have a cut in the front. So I'm just going to get that out of the way. I kind of just like to do stuff that way. And then once we get that and we get the tank down and we fix this fitting right here, it's home free, man. We're going to be screwing the stuff up, getting some zip ties in it, getting everything in here, getting our ground wire on, just making sure that everything is the way that it needs to be, and then double checking it for leaks. And that's the key there, guys. This has been nothing but a pain. So in the next one, we'll take a look. We'll see what our fuel line looks like installed, along with the rest of the stuff for this car that we just keep tackling. We got our Bluetooth rotor replaced, so we're no longer Bluetooth. We're busy working on getting the driver's side pulled out. We have a brand new CV axle to install here, along with a PT knuckle with the ARP studs already installed, ready to go. So I'm going to be getting to do that and some other things, but that's going to be for the next video, and that's where we're going to end it. So I'll see you in that one.